Welcome to this J-World Annapolis video blog. Today I've got Allan Terhune from Quantum Sales. Quantum is our partner for Thursday night racing, and Allan was out on the water with us last night for a cold, light air race night. Allan, what's the secret to success on a night like last night?
Oh, last night was fun. It was cold and rainy, but we had a bunch of boats out. It was a good time. But
a little more like frostbiting than Thursday nights.
It was definitely a different Thursday night, but it was a good time nonetheless. So it was fun. But
what were you sailing on?
Sailing on J70 with some guys from AYC, which was fun. New customers, and we got a good night in. It was a lot of fun.
Looked like you had maybe 10 or 12 boats out. Is that right?
Yeah, maybe 12 boats. I think people stayed away because of the rain, but it was actually better. It was a little less boats. We got more racing in. It was fun.
Awesome.
Light air. It was good.
Yeah. So how'd you set the boat up?
So we, just went a couple settings below base due to the light air. But our real focus was just managing the fleet, getting off the starting line, and just doing that stuff. It wasn't more of a tuning trim night. It was more of a positioning and just sailing for where there was more pressure, things like that. So
sure. So it's Thursday night, meaning that it's a short race course, right?
Yeah.
The windward mark is maybe
Yeah.
a quarter of a mile up from the start
Yeah.
line, and then you've got maybe a half a mile downwind leg.
Yeah.
What are you thinking strategically out there on the race course?
Yeah. Well, first thing we talked about was just finding space on the line. The line was really square. This course is short, so our goal was to get off the line, just really short, area, but really space was the key. So the two starts we had that were good, we had space and we did really well. Last race, I think we were over early because we got in a pack and the whole thing got pushed up. Made it real hard because the course is short and it's really light air. But our whole focus was space, get off the line, and then just try and stay in the pressure, which is even harder because you have J80s in front of you and it makes it a little bit different. So, it's funny. We watched the J80s did really well going one way. If you tried to go that way, the problem was they were all there, so there wasn't as much clean air. So the other side did better. So it was an interesting night from that perspective.
Sure.
So.
How are you approaching the start? So, the line isn't forever long, but it's big enough for all the boats.
Yeah.
You don't have a ton of time to get set up because we do a 3-minute start sequence.
Yeah.
So are you a starboard tack approacher, a port tack approacher, or just sort of stick it in there and see what happens?
Well, I think, in the end, everybody's a port tack approacher at some point. At some point, you tack to starboard. So one of the things we focused on last night was it's light air, takes a long time to get going. So we said by minute 15, we wanted to be on starboard. So that way we had time to get the boat going and kind of figure out where our spacing was to make it happen.
Sure.
We were worried if we tacked too late, the boat wouldn't accelerate. But the flip side, if we got there any earlier than that, you're just luffing the whole time. Same thing. You're sitting there waiting. So the whole thing was somewhere between a minute 15 and a minute. We wanted to tack on the starboard. It worked pretty well for the first two races. Last race, we got on the starboard at minute 40, and then we ended up over early, and the whole pack was bad. So that really seemed to work out pretty well.
So light air boat handling in a J70 or any boat for that matter, body weight, smooth motions. Talk to me about what you're doing to keep the boat fast through the maneuvers.
Well, I think you hit it all on the head. I mean, it's about moving with your body to help the turns, but I think the one thing is really the helmsman being smooth through all the transitions. You see everybody tacking. Sometimes they just jam the tiller over, or during the jibe they turn not at a constant rate, and it really makes the boat struggle. So, smooth and constant is usually the best mode for that stuff.
I guess one of the benefits we have here in Annapolis is fairly flat water.
Yeah.
So you can use the momentum of the boat going into the maneuver to kind of point at the next target.
Absolutely.
And maximize that time while you can.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's boat handling. How about sail shape?
Yeah.
I think that most of our sailors understand that the idea is deeper sails for lighter air, but can you go too far on that?
Yeah, you definitely can go too far. It was funny, last night we saw a lot of boats with the outhauls too far out and the sheets too far eased, and with the water, as you said, super flat, you can get away with having the outhaul on so you didn't have too much drag on the back end of the main, and you could actually trim the jib pretty hard. As long as the telltale on the leech was flowing, we wanted to just keep trimming the jib harder and harder, because with the flat water you didn't need power. You were just looking for a high mode, if anything.
Sure. It seems to me that one of the black boxes of J70 sailing is how much in-hauler do you use?
Yes.
So on last night you said you've got those leech telltales flowing all the time.
Yeah.
Does that mean that you're easing and in-hauling and trying to keep that twisted combination in the sail, or what are you doing?
A little bit, and I think it depends on what sails you were using. I know on a north sail you'd probably use a little bit more in-hauling, maybe 2 inches or so, 1.5 inches. I know with our sails we'd probably in haul, an inch to maybe even not at all, just trim the lured sheet harder. But I still think the goal is make sure the leech doesn't hook over and make sure that the telltale's flowing, and that's kind of the two things to look for.
All right.
Yeah.
You've had success in other classes. We've got a J24 and J22 circle that's going on as well.
Yeah.
What would you tell to those J22 competitors on a night last night?
Yeah.
Different boat, different animal, but same course.
Yeah, I mean, I think, tactically it's very similar. You just want space on the line, and, just be able to go straight right off the gun is the best thing. The key with the J22 is that boat really likes body movement and, I don't want to say the word kinetics, but, it likes being people who are aggressive towards that. So the boat's really conducive to that type of thing.
Yep.
J24, I'm sure lighter air, you want to reduce maneuvers. Tacking isn't the best thing in the world, and, same thing with, jibing and those type of things. So, reduce maneuvers on a bigger, heavier boat like that.
All right, so maybe final question for you.
Yep.
On the short course, it's hard to find a significant advantage one side or the other, but you got to be looking at the next leg all the time.
Absolutely.
So let's say we're coming downwind to the leeward mark, and we've got that short windward leg to get back to the finish line.
Yeah.
It seems to me that there's a fair amount of passing opportunity there.
A lot.
Because a lot of people are like, well, let's just send it home.
Right.
So as you're coming around that leeward mark, what are you thinking or looking for?
Yeah.
Are you asking yourself a series of questions to set up your strategy to go to the finish line?
Right. I mean, it's so short that first thing I'm always looking for is which end is closer and which tack gets me to that end of the line quicker, because the line's pretty long because it's the starting line too. So there's a pretty big disparity that could be on which one's closer to the leeward end.
Sure.
So we're looking at that right away, and then it's more of a traffic and clear air kind of question. And then last is, where's there more pressure, and then we kind of go with that. But a lot of it is usually figuring out which end is closer and going that way.
Sure.
I know last night, the first race, the committee boat end was significantly closer at the finish, so it paid to go straight. Towards the end of the night, the pin end got closer and it paid to tack off earlier. So watching that made a big difference.
I sailed in the J80s, and there were two boats that came around the leeward mark, and they split. And the guy who went right, the first two races had gained, and on that last race, the boat went all the way left.
Gained quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think actually got him in the end.
Yeah.
So got to keep monitoring, keep adjusting, because it changes from
really
one race
quick
to the next.
And
right?
the thing that last night that was interesting is downwind, picking whether to go around the committee boat end or the starting line end, the pin end, was a big difference. In the first race, we jibed earlier, went around the committee boat and passed 4 or 5 boats. And the guys who went to the other side just didn't have enough pressure. It was a pretty big decision to make, because you have to go around the starting line.
That's actually an interesting point, because in the J80 fleet, we came around the top mark, and everybody sent it to looking downwind the right-hand corner.
Yeah.
But the 70 split. Is that a product of them sailing different angles, you think, that they sail a little more heated up, so going to the other side of the committee boat works, or were they just getting different breeze and different options?
I think probably a little bit of both. I know the first time down, we jibed and went inside the committee boat, had a nice line of breeze and got around everybody. Second race we tried to do a similar thing. It didn't work out as well, and I think it was just because the conditions were changing so much. But also, when they moved, I think in between those races, they moved the starting line. So the pin was further down. It made the distances much more different.
Sure.
So it's a pretty interesting part of the race, actually.
Well, it sounds like the takeaway is that you got to keep your head on a swivel and not just assume that what happened last race is going to happen again.
No. Or what happened to the fleet in front of you.
All right.
For sure, yeah.
Super. All right, well, Alan, thanks a lot for coming to chat with us, and we'll see you on the water next week.
Absolutely.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm Kristen Berry for J World Annapolis. We'll see you out there on the water. Thanks for watching.